All rise. Vous vous levez. Please be seated. We'll use the swap.
Thank you. Mr. Fowle, continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, welcome back. Mr. President, may I suggest that we go into a private session for 2 minutes?
Private session.
We're in open session, Mr. President.
Mr. Witness, do you recognize this document as the document that you made to be given to the victims unit?
Ndiyo, ni mimi niliweka sahihi, lakini mwenye kuandika ni mtu tofauti.
Don't tell us who filled it, but the person who filled it for you, or who provided the information to this person who filled up the form for you, who provided that information?
Hizo habari zote nilikuwa nimeandika karatasi nambari 19.
In Part H, the court officer kindly show him Part H of the document. It's page 0138. It says here, on the signature of the victim, I hereby declare that, to the best of my knowledge and belief, the information I have given in the present application form is correct. If I have named someone to act on my behalf in question 14 of this form, I hereby give my consent to that person to act on my behalf. So, Mr. Witness, you signed this declaration that the information contained in the form is to the best of your knowledge and belief. Do you recall, or are you aware of that?
Ndiyo.
And in Part E of the form, under reparations, to the question 34, or let me start with question 33, which says, would the victim like to apply for reparations? And then you answered yes. Then the next question, what would the victim want? And then you asked for the following: compensation and reconstruction of my family business and my residential homes. Do you recall that, Mr. Witness?
Ndiyo, niliongea kuhusu biashara.
And Mr. Witness, and your residential homes, correct?
Ndiyo, pamoja na nyumba ya makao.
Mr. Witness, you did not own the residential home that you lived in, correct?
Ndivyo, ilikuwa nyumba ya kukodesha.
And you are fraudulently claiming compensation for a home you did not own, correct?
No. The witness has said that he did not own a residential home. I think he's made it plain.
I leave it at that, Mr. President.
Yes.
No further questions for this witness.
You completed your question, Mr. Fowl?
Yes, Mr. President. Considering that question wasn't allowed, I rest my case.
Thank you. Witness Mr. Fowl, the lawyer for Mr. Ruto, has finished asking you questions. Now it is the turn of Mr. KenyaMOJA, the lawyer for Mr. Sang. Mr. Katwa.
Mr. President, perhaps before Mr. Keegan takes the floor, I just changed my mind about the VPRS phone. I would like to have it exhibited. The witness has confirmed that it is the application he had made to the VPRS. He has confirmed the signature in it. In the application, it deals with losses the witness claims to have sustained. We know what he owns and what he did not own, and therefore this speaks directly to the issues, and it's probative to the issues that your honors would have to consider. On that basis, I'd ask that it be exhibited. Thank you.
Prosecution.
No objections, Your Honor.
Mr. Kekton.
No objection, Mr. President.
Document would be exhibited as the next Ruto defense exhibit.
The confidential document KEN OTP 01410132 will bear the number EVD T D09000282. The document will be uploaded in a court a posteriori.
Good morning, Mr. Witness.
Si jambo.
Now, I'll start my questions.
Mr. Katwa, the difficulty you would have was the same mistake that Mr. Fowl made. You understand Swahili and you move on with the answer before interpretation has occurred. Let's wait for interpretation.
I apologize, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I don't understand Kiswahili. I can only guess some of the words.
Well, there you go. You guessed. But we proceed.
Mr. President, before I proceed, I already circulated Mr. Sang's binders with effect from last Thursday. We will be using the binders that we gave out on Thursday together with our co-binders, and we contacted the court officers for purposes of ensuring the co-binders are there. The last thing I wish to mention, Mr. President, is that there is an audio of the 29th February 2008, which we disclosed on time, but the transcription and the translation became available today. I have very kindly requested the accommodation of the prosecution, and they have very kindly agreed to accommodate me and allow me to make use of that transcription and the translation. And I request for the court's leave to make reference to those, the transcription and that translation.
Yes, please proceed.
I'll request the court officer to give out the transcription and the translation. Now, Mr. Witness, I want to start my questions with an interview that you had with the prosecution in the year 2012. And for the parties in court, that is at tab 25 of the prosecution's binder, reference Ken-OTP-0085-0773, and I have particular reference to page 0085-0781 to page 0782. Now, Mr. Witness, in the interview I am going to read to you, you had explained that you had something announced by Mr. Sang in his radio broadcast. And this is what you had said. I'll read it out, then I'll ask you if you recall having said that, then I'll ask you a series of questions. This is, do you understand me, Mr. Witness?
Ndio nakuelewa.
Now, this is what you said.
The line.
Now, I would read from line 249 to line 298, but only the English version of that statement, Mr. President.
There was an overlapping speech. What line did you say?
Line 249 to line 298, but only the English version.
All right. The other matter is, did you provide copies to the interpreters and court reporters? All right, interpreters have been told that the document will be published for you so you can follow.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a prosecution document, so we didn't supply, but I hope the prosecution, the interpreters can follow. Mr. Witness, this is what you had told the prosecution, or the investigators rather. Because I remember in mid-January, between 5th and 6th, he announced that there was one elderly person who was killed by the Kikuyu in an area called Molo, when he was taking his kid to school.
Is Mr. Kiginkatwa?
Yes, Mr. President. I'm going on from line 258. And he brought a lot of trouble in town. And then the investigators asked you the question, what trouble did it bring? And the answer was, people now reacted and said, we are going to kill all the people at the camp. And they asked the question, which people? And the answer was, the Kikuyu and the Kisii. And then I move on.
Before you move on, at line 1, page 44, you said, and he brought a lot of trouble in town. Was it he brought or Fat brought a lot of trouble in town?
The sentence was, and that brought a lot of trouble in town.
Yes. Proceed now.
Witness, then you went on to, you are then asked the question, who, and the answer was, you asked who, and then the question again, who was going to kill them, and the answer was the Kipsigis warriors. And then you asked the question, when did you hear this? It was between 5th to 7th January 2008. And then you asked, where did you hear this from? About the killing of this old man or the warriors? About the killing of this old man, who announced it? Did you hear it on the street, or did you hear it on Kass FM? Where did you hear it? And the answer was, I heard it from the radio, Kass FM. Then you asked the question, who was saying it? And you said it was Sang who was announcing that. And then you asked, how did you know the reaction of the people? And the answer was, I phoned people in town. Mr. Witness, do you recall giving this information to the investigators?
Ndivyo.
Now, from that information, Mr. Witness, it is clear that you were in principle saying that there was an old man who was taking his child to school in the general area of Molo, and he was killed, isn't it?
Ndivyo nilisema.
Now, Mr. Witness, I'm sorry for that overlap. Now, Mr. Witness, I would like to show you a news report in the Kenyan media, and I would like you to confirm if you are referring to the same thing in this report you gave to the prosecution. Your Honors, I am making reference to tab 5 of our bundle of documents, and the reference is Ken-D11-0019-0270, and I request the court officer in Nairobi to please pull it up for the witness.
Mr. Kigenkato, I must say I like your bundle with your table of contents and that describes what one's looking at. I thought I should tell you.
We appreciate the compliment, Mr. President. When you asked the other parties to do it, we thought you had actually seen ours and was recommending to the rest.
Document is being shown to the witness.
Now, court officer, I very kindly request you to take the witness to page 0271. Now, witness, I want to read the first 3 paragraphs. I will want to request you to confirm if you can see. Can you see the paragraph starting with the words, youth struck Molo town and killed a businessman? Can you see that, Mr. Witness?
Ndio.
Now, Mr. Witness, the heading of that article is Man Killed in Protests. And the first 3 paragraphs say this: youths struck Molo town and killed a businessman near Molo Academy. Youths sniffing tobacco and chanting war slogans attacked the man near the school and burned him to death in his car yesterday. The barricaded They barricaded all roads leading in and out of Molo town. Local OCPD Mr. Litapalia Achesa said the youths attacked the man after learning he was from a different community. Mr. Witness, you can see those writings, isn't it?
Ndiyo, nimeweza kusoma.
Now, Mr. Witness, could you confirm that your report to the investigators relate to the same issue that is reported in the newspaper, please?
Ndiyo, inafanana.
Mr. Witness, I have heard you say they bear a resemblance. My question is whether it is the same issue that you are referring to in the report you gave the prosecution.
Unajua ilikuwa mambo ya kuelezwa namba 19. Sasa namba 19 vile nimeeleza wakilishi wa mahakama ndio ile ilikuwa katika mambo ya namba 19.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Witness. I want to ask you a couple of questions on the details of that report. Could you first of all confirm what newspaper it is that I have just read from?
Gazeti la Standard.
I request you also to indicate to the court which date that report was made by the newspaper.
Ilikuwa tarehe 23 Januari mwaka 2008.
Now, Mr. Witness, I would like you to look at the last line in paragraph 2, which says, or I'll read the whole paragraph 2. It says, youths sniffing tobacco and chanting war slogans attacked the man near the school and burned him to death in his car yesterday. Can you see, and I'm putting emphasis on yesterday, can you see that, Mr. Witness?
Ndiyo, nimeweza kusoma hiyo.
Now, Mr. Witness, you already confirmed to us that you read that this is a news item of 23rd January 2008, and the yesterday of the 23rd would be to 22nd January 2008, isn't it?
Ni hivi, ilikuwa tarehe 22 siku iliyotangulia.
Now, Mr. Witness, you have told us both in private session and sometimes in the public session that you are very active, you had an active interest in politics and are not given the details of the nature of it. I take it that you would, from time to time, read newspapers listen to the radio, and watch developments on the TV, isn't it?
Ndivyo.
And Mr. Witness, you have a recollection of this story reported by the Standard newspaper on the 23rd of January 2008, isn't it, as a matter of public knowledge?
Siku hiyo mimi sikusoma gazeti. Nimeiona leo katika gazeti.
Now, I'll take you for one moment to what you said in your statement. You said that I remember in mid-January, between 5th and 6th January 2008, you had this report of an old man killed in Molo, and that caused a lot of trouble in town. Do you recall that, Mr. Witness?
Ndio nakumbuka hiyo.
Mr. I'm sorry. Now, you would confirm, Mr. Witness, that this event, as you told the prosecution, happened 15 days after the date that you said had happened in your report to the prosecution, isn't it?
Ndio ni hivyo.
Now, Mr. Witness, in the statement to the prosecution, to the investigators, you had said that you had this report from an announcement made by Mr. Sang in KAS FM. You recall saying that in the statement?
Ndivyo nilisema.
Did you in fact hear Mr. Sang say anything like that on the 5th or the 6th or the 7th January 2008?
Sikuwahi kusikia na wala sikuwahi kusikia kipindi radio ya KAS hata siku moja. Hayo yote ni ya nambari 19.
And Mr. Witness, both the party number 19 and the prosecution could have very easily confirmed that the date of these happenings from open source media reports, isn't it?
Nategemea nambari 19 walikuwa natoa hizi maripoti juu wanalete kwangu.
No. Now, Mr. Witness, the last thing I wish to ask you about that particular point is, do you recall that in the period of January 2008, and owing to violence, the schools in Kenya opened on the 14th January 2008?
Ndio.
Now, I would like to show you a public document which is found at tab 5 of our core binder, and these are the BBC news summaries of their monitoring of KASFM. Jonas, the reference is OTP-0048-0118 and was already made evidence EVD-T-D11-0009. It is in the core binder, and the page under reference is page Ken-OTP-0048-0125. Now, Mr. Witness, we have a report of what BBC observed and recorded from the broadcast that was made by KASFM on the 23rd January 2008. And the question I wanted to ask you is, would you be surprised that in fact in their report they do not mention Mr. Sang as having said anything about the death of this old man who was taking his child to school?
Ndio, hawajaongea kuhusu huyo mzee.
Mr. President, at this point, I request to have the newspaper article, standard newspaper report, Ken-D11-0019-0270 at tab 5, admitted as Mr. Sang's defense exhibit. Mr. President, we have taken precaution to ensure that the entirety of that article, news article, is in the bundle or in the exhibit we propose to produce together with the first page. We pray for its admission as an exhibit. It is directly relevant to the issue, and it has the necessary indicia of reliability.
Prosecution?
We do not object. Thank you.
Mr. Fowle?
No objection, Mr. President.
Document is admitted as the next Sang defense exhibit.
Now,
Document KEN D11-0019-0270 will bear the number EVD T D11-00050.
Now, Mr. Witness, you said something before I'd asked you, and I intended to ask you. I will ask you all the same for the record. Were you listening to KASFM in the period 20th December 2007 to 20th January 2008?
Mimi sikuwahi kusikiza Kass FM na sijawahi kusikiza.
And Mr. Witness, would you be in a position to recognize Mr. Sang's voice?
Sikuwahi kuisikiza, kwa hivyo sijui sauti lake.
Now, Mr. Witness, the scope of your testimony in relation to Mr. Sang are things that are things where it is alleged that Mr. Sang said some things from the 20th December 2007 to March 2008. And my question from your immediate previous answer is that all those things you said that you had Mr. Sang say in that period of 20th December 2007 to 30th March 2008, are they true?
Maneno hayo yote ni mambo ya uongo. Yalikuwa ni mambo ya nambari 19.
So could you confirm all the allegations against Mr. Sang in your two statements, your three main statements against Mr. Sang, which are to be found at tab 1, tab 25, and tab 24 are untrue in the OTP's bundle?
Hayo yote ni mambo ya uongo, ni ya kutungwa na nambari 19.
And there is also some notes that were produced by the prosecution, being notes that are said to have been made by you, and they make reference to Mr. Sang. Could you confirm if the references to Mr. Sang in those notes are true?
Mambo gani? Rudia kidogo.
Mr. Witness, when the prosecution were taking you through your testimony, and when my learned friend for Mr. Ruto was cross-examining you, you were referred to some handwritten notes of events relating to Mr. Ruto and others relating to Mr. Sang. Do you recall that? And for the parties in court, the reference is Ken-OTB-0086-0302.
Ndiyo.
Now, in those notes, Mr. Witness, you dedicated 4 pages to Mr. Sang, where you said various things about Mr. Sang, in the period from 27th December 2007 to about 7th of January 2008. And the question I'm asking you, all those allegations against Mr. Sang over that period, are they the truth of what you heard Mr. Sang say at the station?
Sio ukweli, ni mambo ya nambari 19 na sikuwahi kusikiza radio ya kazi.
Now, Mr. Witness, I want to go to a different issue. In the paragraphs I read to you of your testimony given to the prosecution when you are recording your statement, it is said that these are the things you heard in the period of 5th, 6th, and 7th January 2008. I have also read all the 3 transcripts attached, Mr. Sang, of your interviews, and they range, some of the allegations are in the period of 31st January to the 31st December 2007 to the 7th of January 2008. Do you recall saying various things about Mr. Sang over that period, Mr. Witness?
Ndiyo, nilizungumzia mambo yaliyo kinyume.
Your Honor, the references of the transcripts are, the first one is at tab 1, Ken-OTP-0072-0397 of the prosecution's bundle. The second one is Ken-OTP-0085-0735, and tab 25, Ken-OTP-0085-0773. Now, Mr. Witness, with particular reference to that period I just invited you to, that is the 31st of December 2007 to the 7th of January 2008. Do you recall, with all the knowledge and your having been in Kenya, that there was a certain ban on live media broadcast?
Ndiyo, siku hiyo ilikuwa kuna mambo ya live.
Mr. Witness, do you recall who placed the ban?
Ni serikali.
Now, Mr. Witness, I will request the court officer to take you to what is in tab 1, tab 1 of our small binder, reference Ken-D09-0022-0010. Court officer in Nairobi, could you confirm if you've been able to trace it? The reference again is Ken-D09-0022-0010.
Counsel, I am looking for that document and it's not ones that I have. Was it in your bundle or in the bundle of other parties?
It was in Mr. Sang's bundle. And I'm made to understand that it was emailed.
I don't have that document. If you can email it to me right away, I will be able to present it.
I'll go to a different issue, Mr. President, and then come back to that issue in the meantime. Now, Mr. Witness, I'd like to invite you to another piece of information you gave the investigators, and this is to be found at tab 24 of the prosecution's bundle. The reference is Ken-OTP-0085-0735, and I have particular interest in what is contained at paragraph 965. Now, Mr. Witness, in that interview, this is what you said, and I will only read what is in English. I will start.
One minute. Did you say it's where?
Mr. President, it is at tab 24 of the prosecution's bundle.
Oh, you were saying paragraph, you mean line 964?
Yes, Mr. President.
Oh.
Yes. For context, I will read from paragraph 953. Mr. Witness, I request you to listen closely. I will read the English version, and then I'll ask you a few questions. At 953, this is what you are reported as having said. He was saying that the votes were now being stolen, that ODM votes were stolen, and PNU now was gathering more stolen votes, and that continued for a long time. And then I stopped listening. I was just in town until it came to 29th December. Before we proceed on, 28th, 10 p.m. that night, he spoke. And he said that people should be prepared for war because PNU had already grabbed the victory from ODM, and people should not accept that. And I was afraid. Then I slept until the following morning. Mr. Witness, do you recall having given that information to the prosecution?
Ndiyo vyo.
Now,
And Mr. Kinikatwa, the subject there would be Mr. Sang, is that it?
Yes, Mr. President. At paragraph 950,
Yes, line 950.
Yes.
Yes.
The interviewers, the investigators asked him, so what was Mr. Sang saying on this particular announcement? And then he says he was saying that votes were now being stolen. That's
Yes.
953. Now, Mr. Witness, the totality of what I've just read is to the effect that Mr. Sang announced on the 28th that ODM had won and that results had been stolen. My question, though I know I'd asked you earlier on, but I'll ask you again. My question is, could you confirm if you had anything like this said by Mr. Sang?
Sikuwahi kusikia Sang akiongea na sikuwahi kusikiza radio ya kazi.
Now, I will go on at page line 983, and this is what he said, or this is what he said that you had said. The question was put to you. Did people call on this program when Sang said this? Were there some people who called in to respond to what he was saying? And then you are reported to say, when I came to my house around 4 p.m., he was just talking and talking. And when he finished talking, I fell asleep. Then he asked, did you hear anybody call him? Your answer was that at that time I didn't hear anyone. And then, Mr. Witness, you went on to say in the following paragraphs that Mr. Sang called people out to come and fight. And I would like to play to you an audio of what Mr. Sang said at the station on the said 29th December 2007. Jonas, I want to play an audio timestamp of 29th December 2007 in the morning. The reference is Ken-D11-00-0251. The translation is Ken D11-0008-0001, and the timestamp I wish to play is 53.14 to 53.49.
Mr. Kigen-Katwa, could you please confirm the level of confidentiality of the document?
It's a public document, thank you. Jonas, that would be pages 25 to 26 in the pagination of the transcript and the translation. It is at tab 6 of the core binder, the initial binder. Now, Mr. Witness, I will play the audio. Please listen to it very closely. It is in Kalenjin, which from what you said you understand. Jonas, for the record, the pages are Ken-D11-0008-0027 to 28. Sorry, it's only 27. And it's timestamp 53.14 to 53.49.
So ameja wale tebeji tukulo imite. Tebeji tukulo imite kubiya kije kitukubwana nga umunyenga. Chikamu kutukamu lazima yotao ni umunyenga. Picha waktu sa kubela gari shek ngulo bagericho. Achicha mobile gari na bachi. Amawir gari shek. Pick up kericho. Mwai ba ishona manyol jin pick up call engine na tebono. Ko birgura ko mien ko konyi tok pinge bendi ko latukul kulen bi pick up call engine ko ay kasi nagararan ko boru tegisto ama uguno boriet ako missing ko kwengot konyik na iboru ko gumumi boriet ko magene boriet na kapasai pick up langas uripke.
Now, Mr. Witness, were you able to follow what was said by Mr. Sang?
Nimeyasikia.
Now, Mr. Witness, in your own words, could you give us a very brief summary of what you heard Mr. Sang say in that small audio?
Sang alisema watu wapige kura kwa njia nzuri, walio nyumbani wakae nyumbani kwa uzuri, wanaoenda town waende town kwa uzuri. Mtu yote asiweze kuchoma gari ya mtu wala kufanya chochote kibaya.
Now, Mr. Witness, I will read an English translation of what we made of what Mr. Sang said. The translators will translate it to you in Kiswahili. I will request you to confirm if that's a fair translation of what you just heard Mr. Sang say on the 29th of December 2007. Mr. President, I'll read from the second paragraph at page 0027. I want to ask each one to remain stationed in one place. Stay wherever you are. And people intending to leave home, please relax at home. If it is not absolutely necessary for you to go to town, stay at home. As for those people who are screaming and setting vehicles on fire in Kericho, no, please. Do not set anybody's vehicle on fire. Do not stone vehicles. Kericho people, do not do that. That behavior does not befit the Kalenjin people. You voted without hitch, and other people respect you for this. You did a good thing. So continue to show respect and not to engage in violence. More so, you even elected women, which demonstrated that there was no violence. Why do you now want to engage in violence? People of Langas, watch out. That was the end of the audio. Mr. Witness, could you confirm if what I've just read is a fair reflection of what you heard Mr. Sang say in the audio of the 29th December 2007?
Ndiyo, inaonesha hivyo.
Now, Mr. Witness, and please just limit your answer to the exact question I ask you without explaining anything. Could you confirm that from the small excerpt of what I've just taken you through, you actually heard Mr. Sang make reference to two locations seeking that people keep peace? One was Langas and the other one was Kericho. Do you recall having heard Sang plead for peace for those two places?
Ndiyo, alihusisha hayo maeneo mawili.
Now, in the statement I took you through, and as it went on, there are instances when it is your statement goes on to the prosecution to say that Mr. Sang called people to come out and fight. Can you confirm from the audio that you hear Mr. Sang saying the exact opposite, saying stay at home unless you must leave, unless it is absolutely necessary?
Ni tofauti kabisa. Statement ya upande wangu ni nambari 19. Ukweli, Bwana Sang aliongea kuhusu amani na watu waishi kwa amani na wasifanye fujo yoyote.
Lastly, from that item, could you confirm that Mr. Sang says that as far as he's concerned, it is not in the nature and the character of Kalenjin people to be violent, and more particularly to stone vehicles and otherwise to set other people's vehicles on fire.
Ndiyo, nahakikisha hivyo na ninaelewa hivyo, sio desturi ya Kalenjin kufanya hayo.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Now, in that statement also, you said that Mr. Sang is a Kipsigis, that Mr. Sang used to play Kipsigis songs, that the station Kass FM belongs to a Kipsigis who is resident in USA. Are all those things true to the best of your knowledge?
Haya mambo yote ni ya uongo ya nambari 19. Mimi sikumjua Sang wala sikusoya station yenyewe.
And witness, with passage of time and in view of the fact that it was a relevant issue for purposes of your testimony, do you now know what sub-tribe Mr. Sang belongs to?
Namjua wana Sang kama Mkalenjin.
Now, in your statement also, you said that Mr. Sang, in line with the allegation that he was inciting people, continued playing music called, in your words, Bado Mapambano. Jonas, that is at page, that is between lines 1020 to line 1027, more particularly at line 1025. Now, Mr. Witness, my question is that true that Mr. Sang was playing music called Bado Mapambano with a view to encouraging people to engage in violence?
Hapana, wimbo Mapambano ilikuwa ni wimbo ya mbunge mmoja kwa jina Otieno Kajwang. Mimi sikuwahi kusikia Sang wala radio yenyewe.
And could you tell us
spelling?
Mr. Witness, could you confirm that the spelling I give is correct for Mr. Honorable Otieno Kajwang? Could you confirm that Otieno is O-T-I-E-N-O and Kajwang is K-A-J-W-A-N-G? Is that correct?
Ni kweli ni hivyo.
It was really more the song. Was it spelled on the record?
Could you confirm that the spelling of the song Bado Mapambano, which is in the transcript of the interview, line 1025, Bado is spelled B-A-D-O and Mapambano is M-A-P-A-M-B-A-N-O?
He doesn't need to confirm it. If that is the spelling what you said, that's enough for us to get a spelling from you.
Now, Mr. Witness, could you confirm if Mr. Otieno or Honorable Otieno Kajwang is a Kalenjin?
Otieno Kajwang ni Muluo kutoka Nyanza.
Mr. Kinkato, we have to take our lunch break now, and we'll come back at 2:30. How much more time?
Most like no more than 40 minutes, probably 30 minutes, Mr. President. And the reason is just this one audio I'll play 3 parts, and otherwise I would have been much shorter.
Right, and Ms. Sago, re-examination time?
We estimate that if at all, we will re-examine whether it is really necessary over lunchtime, but we do not anticipate that it will last more than 5 minutes.
Thank you. Witness, we will take our lunch break now, and we will see you back in the room at in 1.5 hours' time. The court will rise.
All rise.